Today, we're looking at a blue ink by Rohrer and Klingner, Document Light Blue. As always, there's timestamps down below in the description so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, it really would help me out if you check out the entire video. Hi, I'm an ink guy. If you like blue inks and would like to check out more of them, down in the description there's links to all of the playlists of the reviews done sorted by color. There are 3 papers used to standardize a bunch of the writing samples: Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia dot pad. Let's take a look at 90 GSM Clairfontaine. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer some light bits of shading. Look at the word document, starting darker to lighter to darker again. The extra fine is about the same tone as the stub, showing off more of the lighter tones. It has no feather spread, halo sheen. The shading is a bit better than we're seeing in the stub because it shows off more of those light tones. Like in the word brown, it starts as a mid, gets dark, goes very light to dark again, and 14 seconds to dry. The medium is about the same tone as the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen, very nice shading that's going on, just like we saw with the extra fine. Look at the word over, starts light, gets dark. 23 seconds to dry, quite a bit longer than I was expecting for document ink. The scrubby for both do show color variation left to right. We get that in the writing sample. The smear test, I don't know that you could recover it if you smeared while you were writing. To make sure there's a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are done with this Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, this Jinhao X450 with a medium, and this Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then an Aurora Optima with a broad nib is inked up, used for a day, and used to take the notes for this video. Now, let's take a look at the second standard paper, 52 GSM Tomoe River. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. There is some shading when you look at the word document, starting darker, getting lighter, and getting darker again. It is there. The extra fine is about the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, still offers some nice little shading. Like in the middle of quick, it's a bit lighter than the rest of the word. Brown starts darker and gets lighter. 22 seconds to dry. The medium is a little bit darker than the extra fine, just a tad lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, still spots of shading. You look at quick, starting dark, getting lighter, getting dark again. 36 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both do show color variation far left to far right. Not tons, but we don't get tons of it in the writing. And the smear test, I don't think you could recover this if you smeared while you were writing. I agree with Vita. There's a lot to learn by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down and it's immediately put in the water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see this line of blue at the bottom, and then it skips because it's pushing up. And the blue's pushing its way all the way up, but it's really holding back constantly as it goes. You can see it setting in as it's moving up. And that gets confirmed when we look at the one on the right. That's allowed to dry for 10 minutes before it's dunked in the water. And all of that ink has stayed right there on that line, showing this will be a very resistant ink. The last standard paper is 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, very light shading. Really the only spot that it looks lighter is in the middle of the word document. The extra fine is just a tad lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, spots of shading like the bottom left part of brown, the F in fox, the O in over, all a little bit lighter, but not a ton here. 16 seconds to dry. Medium is about the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen. It offers some shading, like you see the middle of quick gets lighter, and then it gets dark again. Brown starts light, gets dark, gets light again. 27 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both shows some color variation far left to far right, and we do get it in the writing. In the smear test, I still don't think you could recover this if you smeared it while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, this performs amazingly. This is a great ink for a note-taking situation. It didn't budge at all, which you would expect when you see what happens with water, which is nothing. It didn't move at all. In fact, it took pen flesh to start breaking it up and only moving a little bit of the dark tones. Not a lot of this ink. It really did start to bond with the paper. 1/3 bleach solution is barely moving it. You can see just above it where that bleach dot was, but it's really not getting it out of the paper. It's bonded with the paper very well. Although, as a side note, it really did only take water to get this out of my pen. I didn't need anything else. Additional writing samples are done on a lot of different papers in order to expand the experience with this ink and with papers in general. The next paper we're going to take a look at is Rhodia yellow paper to see what kind of tone change this ink goes through. With all of the performance really being the same, the only thing that we're looking at is that tone difference. Now we do see that it went from a blue to really much more of a turquoise color. I don't know if you're writing on yellow paper in your office, if they would be particularly happy with this color when they're looking for a blue ink, if that's what matters. Although it is a blue ink, and you could argue that, I just don't know that it's worth arguing for. Just to be aware of how that tone itself could change. For the inks tested, there is an average viscosity or flow of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Rohrer and Klingner's Document Light Blue has a viscosity of 2.05, making this a wet ink. If you're interested in how the viscosity is tested and how the bell curve's made, then there's a link for that down in the description. The next writing sample is done on black and red notebooks. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer some shading. Like you look at the word light is much lighter than the and between Rohrer and Klingner. Document shows some shading within it. It's pretty nice. The extra fine is about the same tone as the stub. With no feather spread, halo sheen, there is some shading, but it's not as obvious. Brown, if you look at the BR, it's much darker than the right side of the W. Over starts lighter and becomes darker. 7 seconds to dry. The medium is about the same tone as the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen. I think the shading is easier to see, like when you look at quick, starting darker to lighter to darker, and jumps, starts light and becomes much darker. 10 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both do show some color variation, far left to far right. And the smear test, I still don't think you could recover this if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, there is an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Rohrer and Klingner's Document Light Blue has an average dry time of 23 seconds, making this take a little longer than normal to dry. The last writing sample is done on white lines paper. We get a ton of bleed spots that are occurring here. Now it's bleeding through and not really touching the page underneath, not even on the scrubby where it's coming through much more, but we see that all of the nibs do bleed through. Not a ton of ghosting though, only the spots that are coming through on us. Now the 1.1 has no feather spread, no halo, no sheen, and no shade. It's just a light blue. Just a little bit darker than that is the extra fine. With no feather spread, halo sheen, there is a tiny bit of shading that's occurring. If you look at the word brown, starts a little darker, ends a little lighter at the N. Quick gets just a little lighter going into the U and darker into the I. Not a ton though, but only 5 seconds to dry. The medium is darker than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no real shading. There's a couple, maybe The O in over looks slightly lighter, but not really enough to take notice of. 6 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both do show us some color variation, although we're not getting much in the medium. The smear says you could recover this if you smeared it while you were writing. Instead of doing color comparisons, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. To go with this blue, I chose a nice orange from Callifolio Anahuac. I really do like the way orange offsets the red in place. If you would prefer a different color to be the complement, then take a look down in the description and you're going to see a bunch of playlists listed by color where you'll see all of the different colored inks that have been reviewed. So what do I think of Rohrer and Klingner's Document Light Blue? Despite my expectations, with this being a document ink, it shades very nicely. I was kind of worried it would be too light to comfortably read. I was wrong. Truly a great permanent ink if that's the type of thing that you need in your work environment. What nib and pen will give the best writing experience with this ink? Now, it didn't turn out to be as aggressive as I was really expecting from a document ink. With that, you can feel safe using this in a broad wet pen, but I kind of like it from a wet fine, personally. I hope you got something out of this video, and I'd like to invite you tomorrow when we're going to take a look at Pen BBS number 183.